Hello and welcome to the Mysticast, where you join Jack Stafford and Deborah Littleboy, members of the Aetherius Society, the cosmic religion for the Aquarian Age, as we break down the barriers between religion, science, metaphysics, philosophy, and mysticism, all of which are really only aspects of the self-same quest for truth. Please note, this is an independent program not produced or fact-checked by the Aetherius Society. Today, our guest is Emma Farrell. Emma, how you doing?
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thanks for inviting me onto your show.
It's our pleasure. We're really we're attracted by the divas we're more interested in than you're more into the plants. We're interested in the we've a lot of study with the divas, which are the nature spirits, you know, the fairies, the elves. In our teachings that we bless those who give thanks. And I think you're a Thanksgiver.
Yeah. Okay, beautiful. So yeah, I mean, when you work with the plants and the plant spirits, you can't help but come across the nature spirits as well, the fae, etc. Because the plants act as kind of like gateways into those realms. So yes, I work with the spirits of the plants, but I also like to journey into those realms as well. So I'm sure we've got lots of things to compare and contrast.
So how did you get in? You've just have you not forgotten what we've all forgotten then since you were a child? You've remembered? Because when many young children see fairies, how did the journey start for you?
So yeah, I mean, as a child, I think all of us were, into fairies, and we're blessed that the Victorians managed to save the knowledge of the fairies in their stories, etc. Although they did kind of do those beings a disservice, really, by making them kind of into caricatures that sit under toadstools, etc. And that's not really what they are at all. And that's a lovely way of remembering them. But actually, those realms are really quite vast, and they have a really huge diversity of beings that live in them. And so as a child, yeah, I was really interested in them. But obviously, as I grew up and we get kind of conditioned into only focusing on the physical world through all of our schooling, etc., and having to earn a living. But it wasn't until I started working with plants in my kind of early 30s that I really started to kind of like open up to those realms again. So yeah, it was actually my journey with the plants that took me there.
I'm bringing Deborah here because she has a wonderful garden, and she has studied also the books of Geoffrey Hodgson, who's a theosophist who saw many interesting experiences with the divas.
What I'm interested in, you said you started to work with plants again. Was that sort of like as a in a nursery, or when you say you started to work with plants, what form did that take?
So I've always been interested in consciousness expansion. That's an exploration. That's been my kind of thing, really. So I was studying my master's degree in Tibetan Buddhism, actually, in Tuscany, when somebody invited me to a plant medicine ceremony. And it was with a root of an African plant that they were doing, that they work with ceremonially. It's for healing. And so usually that group worked with people to help them with their addictions with this particular root, which is called iboga. But they were putting together a group of more spiritual people, meditators, to see what the effect would be with people who were on a spiritual path, because it's a psychoactive plant. And so I went to this ceremony and really kind of considered working with plants for my spiritual development. I was more into meditation, yoga, lucid dreaming, that kind of thing. And then I was in the ceremony and had a conversation with the spirit of this plant, and it just blew my mind. I was like, okay, right, okay, this is
a conversation. Sorry to talk into you, but before I miss that segue, if you want, What did the plant say to you, and how did it express itself?
So it spoke to me as I was, because I was studying my master's at that time, and it spoke to me in Buddhist concepts. So I was there. I'm just I think I'm going to be a student till I die. You know, I always I love learning. And so I just wanted to know from this plant spirit, what can you teach me about these particular concepts that I'm learning in Buddhism? And then it taught me, and it allowed me to have a direct experience of those concepts through the mind. So the concept of emptiness, I wanted to understand that more, because you're taught in Tibetan Buddhism and modern Buddhism that it's very difficult to have a direct experience of emptiness, and it's not with the plants. And so the iboga allowed me to sit there with not a thought in my mind. It was like a dissolution of self. And I'd say at least half an hour to an hour, I lost concept of time, but it was a long time. And I was just sat in this vast, vast space of just the natural mind, which I understand as being stillness, silence, and spaciousness. And so I experienced that directly with no thoughts. And so it was absolutely stunning. And then, so it was not only teaching me and having kind of like this direct kind of like transmission, if you like, of information, because I'm quite kind of visual on the inner planes. And so it appeared to me as a plant itself. And so not only was it kind of like giving me information about what I was asking it, things to do with my own spiritual development, things to do with what I was learning, things to do with kind of like issues that I've got in my life. And I was receiving answers of truth from this planet spirit, which really kind of, just blew my mind. Like, okay, this is where truth is. Because, losing kind of faith in the world sometimes, we go through phases where we, perhaps in our spiritual development, where we struggle to kind of trust things in the external world. And so yeah, it was really, and I would test the plant spirit. Actually, I was testing it to make sure it was telling me the truth, and it was. And it was. So that just opened my mind into, wow, okay, what have other plants got to tell me? This is an African plant. What have my own plants of my own land got to say? So yeah.
And how do you connect with the plants then? Do you always ingest them, or can you just connect with the plant behind you, for example?
So a couple of ways. Yeah, I work with the live plants, of course, and the trees. But I also work and have my own flower and plant essence range. So I work with vibrational remedies. So I capture the vibrational frequency, the bioresonance of the plant in water, and then you can fix that with some alcohol that fixes the vibration. And then I ingest that. You don't necessarily need to ingest it. If you're quite sensitive, you can put it on your pulse points or just hold the bottle. And it's that frequency, that kind of vibration, because everything's vibration, that the spirit of the plant, the consciousness of the plant can work through that vibration into that remedy. So by ingesting that, an essence of a plant, you can communicate with the consciousness of it, the spirit of it. So that's primarily how I work. However, when I take people through a process of an initiation with a plant, where I hold space for people to be initiated by the plant spirits themselves into that plant spirit's world, into a new kind of reality, if you like, because you're stepping into the kind of like the conscious space of the plant spirit. When I take people through that, I make, if it's an edible plant and tree, I make medicines from the different parts of the plant, the roots, the leaves, the blossoms, etc., decoctions, tinctures, etc. And we kind of create a magical elixir that we all blend together biodynamically. So we mix it for an hour and put all our prayers into it and all our blessings and all our gratitude. And then that's all we drink for 3 days. And we just fast and consume that. And then we do lots of kind of shamanic journeying and creative work and even dancing to embody the plant and just allow the plant spirit to work through us. And so we can see how it can and receive healing from it. So, yeah.
It's not a bit like the touch therapies. Is that, does that work in the same way when you stabilize the vibrations? Is that would you tell people to have 3 or 4 drops for anxiety if you take in the same way as Joseph Batch would have put together his medicines?
Yeah, those flowers. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a similar concept. I think the batch remedies that we've got today and that you can buy in the pharmacies, I don't think they're made in co-creation with the plant spirits anymore. And so I find them quite, they work, but what they do is they kind of like, I find them quite 2-dimensional in that, you know, just say, okay, I'm feeling anger. And so I want, it recommends holly and it kind of cancels out the anger. The way I work with is my essences or another plant spirit healer or plant spirit herbalist create the remedies, the essences in co-creation with the plant spirit. And so it makes it much more dynamic. And my intention is not to cancel things out. It's to bring things to conscious awareness so that we can learn from it. So it's not, you know, it's not always an easy path, you know, looking at the stuff that it's bringing out of our subconscious, but it's a healing path because it's only through shining the light of awareness onto these kind of shadowy parts of our psyche are we able to actually heal and bring balance. So rather than canceling out, they actually illuminate. So and I think it's just kind of the intention when you're making remedies and vibrational remedies, the producer is very important in that process as well. Just as in quantum physics, the observer is important to whether it's a wave or a particle. And so with the essences, if your intention as the producer is to create a remedy that's going to illuminate and bring things up for people to see, then that's what it'll do. It's in co-creation with the plant spirit. It's very dynamic in that. But if you and the same on the other way, if it's just to kind of like cancel out certain frequencies in people's energy fields to support them through difficult times, then it will do that as well. So they do both.
The balance. So you've got a balancing thing going on. Do you actually ask for permission before you start to use before you start to work in conjunction? Is it very much a case of you go from a place of reverence to the plant spirit?
Yes, absolutely. So before I make any essence, I will have made contact with that plant spirit. I will have, it's all a case of entering into a sacred space with them because the plant spirits teach us about sacredness, and the more you honor them and respect them in what they can do and who they are, then the more you will resonate with them because you're asking to step into that sacred space with them. It's like when you visit a sacred stone circle, for example, you know, in our landscape, if you just arrived with a camera and you just walked into the stone circle, took some pictures and left, that's the experience you're going to have. It's quite kind of like just, you know, kind of disconnected really. But if you stand outside of a stone circle and ask permission to enter into that sacred space, you're going to have a much more deeper connection to the ancestors who built it, to the Devic spirit of that place, etc. And so your experience will be much more profound. And it's the same with the plant spirits. You know, you're entering into that unseen realm with them. And so just stepping into that space in a sacred way. And so I work ceremonially with them, make offerings, and of course ask permission to work with them if they'd like to work with me and if I could be their student. And so, yeah, I enter into a process where I will spend a long time kind of meditating with that plant, journeying with it, and then make the essence and start kind of taking that as well. So, and the teas, you know, I work with strong decoctions and teas, infusions. So during that process, just to really get to know that plant spirit and whether it wants to work with me. It's a co-creation and it's an agreement. So I don't ever, I think there's that line, isn't there, where it has to be an agreement, because if you start influencing anything, human or non-human or discarnate or incarnate beings, if you start influencing them without their permission, then that's kind of erring on the side of kind of dark stuff. So we always have to, stay in alignment with the divine and ask permission, for sure.
We're taught that I'm trying to find a parallel between what we've been taught in the society and what you're experiencing. So in the society, we're told that there are hierarchical levels of the whole Devic Kingdom. And we start with very simple levels, which are the gnomes, which look after the bulbs, and the fairies, which take care of the plant essences and will work with them. The elementals would be another way of using the words, the phrases we're using, but above those, so they have very limited consciousness, the tiny beings that have a set job to do. So in other words, building up the essence of this plant, the aura of this plant, and that's what they do happily, time after time, singing, in a high vibrational way. So we get this beautiful essence of a rose, let's say. But above, so that's very limited in the way of consciousness. They know what they're doing. They've got their rules. They do it time after time, set to rule. They don't move away from it. So but then we're told there's like an overseer of all the plants, if you want. So and we call them the higher Devic Kingdom. And so we got like the divas that are in charge of the wind, and we've got the diva, which are the divas of fire, but they're all in a hierarchy. So I think what I'm asking is do you see a similar in that the plant spirit that you work with, say with the plant that's behind you, does it acknowledge that there is a higher force that is working in line with? Is that something that you've come across?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure there'll be similarities within our categorization of these devas, but yeah, there is this kind of hierarchy, and we are limited with language, aren't we? Because it's kind of, it's I don't really like using hierarchy because, I love them all, and, they're all super important. And so for me, it's more kind of like a sphere of these beings. But yeah, for us to understand it, so there is definitely a hierarchy. So because I'm trained in, and kind of I am Celtic, then that my understanding comes from that. And so when I go into the plant kingdom or queendom, when I go into the other world, it's kind of those kind of beings, the mythology and the spirits of our lands that I encounter. And with plants and trees, so in my tradition, so you've got the spirit of this particular plant. Okay, so it's got a personality. We all recognize that the trees in our gardens have unique personalities. One oak tree will have a different kind of personality from another. Okay, we do anthropomorphize a little bit, and kind of impute our kind of human traits onto them, but that's okay. I think it's a way of understanding them. And but that personality from that plant or tree is created from the soul forces of the earth. So everything is made up of the elements, the earth, air, fire, and water. And so that creates the body of the plant and the body of humans as well. And so we've got this earthly body that's animated by all the other elements and animated by this kind of like this the spark of life. but also through that our personality evolves. So our unique personality for this lifetime, like me in this lifetime, is going to be different to me in another lifetime. But what comes through that is an overarching eternal aspect. And so we have an eternal aspect that has, and I don't want to say past lives because it's misleading, I find that, but other lives. So we have experience of other lives with this eternal aspect of us, and in all traditions, wisdom traditions, and probably in yours as well, there's a name for that and an understanding of that aspect, that dual nature of humans. But it's the same for the plants and trees as well. So they have this kind of their own unique personality, but they've got this overarching Devic spirit of their genus, overarching Devic spirit of the species and the genus. So yes, absolutely. And it's that overarching Devic spirit that, and there's many names for that as well. It's that spirit that I work with. And so just through intention, I mean, yeah, I can, go and speak to individual plants, and I'll meditate under the trees, etc., and connect to those and receive healing and kind of things, and give offerings to that individual tree or plant. But actually, when it comes to my work and when it comes to my kind of exploration and kind of relationship building with that plant spirit, it will be with that overarching Devic spirit. Within that realm, there is a hierarchy, of course. There's kind of like there's differences of densities within that realm. And so, we get some planet spirits that kind of just operate more on an astral level. And then we've got planet spirits that really operate from a very fine vibrational level, like, kind of blueprint level. So, yeah, absolutely. We have a similar understanding.
Thank you for explaining it that way, because now it makes, now I can clearly see the link between what you're doing and what our teachings say. Words are so clumsy, aren't they, Emma? I say a word, you say a word, and they're just like, well, let's get the dictionary out. But we have a prayer which was given to us by the Master Jesus, or a set of prayers called the 12 Blessings, which is Jack's.
I just happen to have here.
Yeah, right. The fifth blessing is a blessing to the Devic Kingdom, or rather it's to the Thanksgivers. So it's those people that recognize what you've just explained so beautifully, recognize that there is this whole realm of consciousness that directly affects our lives. And the people that have invested the time to know that it exists and give thanks for it, which is where my question with do you ask permission before, so do you enter into this dialogue? Are you working with them? So the fifth blessing is all about sending energy, which we do through prayer, through our chakras, in our hands, bring it through our heart and out to the soul of the people, the Thanksgivers, which Jack, I think, said that you were. And I believe that you are.
Let that sink in for a minute, Emma, that the Master Jesus has came back to give an update to the Sermon on the Mount with a cosmic aspect. And you are one of the people he chose to thank of all the people. I mean, he blessed this. The 12 blessings are those who work for peace. Obviously, that's a pretty important one. The wise ones are ascended masters, people who've reached enlightenment, cosmic consciousness, ascension, and not being reborn anymore. Those guys deserve thanks. Those who love, of course, the planetary ones, those are beings like Jesus who come from other worlds, incarnate in our cycle. They deserve thanks. Yeah, the Thanksgivers, that's you, number 5. Then those who heal, obviously healing deserves it. And then we go on to the much more evolved masters, the Mother Earth, the mighty Sun, the Supreme Lords of Karma, the galaxy, the Supreme Lords of Creation, and then the Absolute. So you're in good company.
So I still don't quite understand what a Thanksgiver is.
Well, let me read you a short extract. In these days, few men on this world ever give thanks to the Devic realms for their tireless work on behalf of backward mankind. Those who do this are remembered by the gods. This is you. And then the Master Jesus comes on. This is the fifth blessing. So that was from Saint Guling, who's from the spiritual hierarchy of Earth. And then the Master Jesus says, "O sweet and most wonderful children, you are now being filled with the power and love of Holy God. Blessed are the Thanksgivers, for they turn great tides of energy and direct these towards their objectives. Blessed are they who have expended enough energy themselves so that they may know of the existence of the Devic Kingdom, and knowing this, live in eternal thanks for its work. Blessed are these ones. They walk in lonely silence upon the shores of many seas, sending out beams of their love to mighty Neptune and his hosts. They labor in 1,000 fields and ofttimes give thanks unto those who protect the fertility of their seed. They walk through 1,000 woods, sending out rays of thought from their minds to those who dwell in man's invisibility therein. I say unto you now, that those ones are indeed thrice blessed, for they demonstrate their belief and love of God in a most practical way. It dawns upon these ones what debt they owe to their Devic helpers. These are the ones who pay their spiritual debt to those who sacrifice in order to render to them great service, which results in a definite road through experience. Thrice blessed are they who send their power and love to the Devas, who walk in the rain with bared heads and bless those who shake the clouds, who stand in flood and bless those who have sent it. Ordinary man, by his wrong thought and action, has for countless centuries sent streams of power to the Devas, power discolored by his uncontrolled emotion. The Devas, having no other tools but those of man, have had to make flood and drought. Man is responsible for all these, and all these will be reckoned in his karma. Thrice blessed are they who provide the Devas with the spiritual tools, so that they may build their empires upon the rock of balance. O children of God, walk ye into the night and thank your God for it. Walk ye into the dawn and thank your God for it. Walk ye into the sunset and thank your God for it, and you will be helping the silent workers to preserve balance for you. Thrice blessed are those who have done this, and this is now, by now. So endeth the fifth blessing.
Brings tears to my eyes. That's just beautiful. Gosh, yeah. Well, I think that just having a practice of gratitude, I teach this to my students, having that practice of gratitude is so important. So that's part of why I, give offerings, is to give gratitude. Because that's what keeps us in our heart, and that's how we communicate with those realms is through the heart. So gratitude keeps us in that space, and so it's like this biofeedback mechanism by giving thanks, and keeps us in balance. Absolutely, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
We're told by Dr. King in a lecture that if we all appreciated what the Devic Kingdom was and how it worked, and it only operates by the thoughts and vibrations that we give it. So in other words, if we all did that and we were sending out the correct thoughts and vibrations to them, then we wouldn't have to suffer floods, drought, and all the earthquakes, etc. That wouldn't happen. And he went on to say that even because he was in California at the time, even the orange groves wouldn't need to be watered, because they would get to the exact ounce, the amount of rainwater they needed to flourish. Because if the Devas are given the correct vibrations, then everything then just fits in perfectly. And
it also speaks to me about, I believe that our true role is being guardians of the earth. And we've forgotten that, we've forgotten our role in that, And so even if you don't own the piece of land that you live on, you're still living on that land. So therefore you're a guardian of it. And therefore it's your responsibility to live in harmony, to make sure that all of the earth energies are balanced. You're living in harmony with the unseen beings that are there. And yeah, absolutely, I'm sure. And I'm sure as well that, you know, the Rudolf Steiner system of biodynamic agriculture and farming works along those principles as well. So yeah, that makes sense to me.
There's also this book, Life on the Other Planets, which is out of print at the moment, but it describes some of the plant life on other worlds, because not at this realm, not at this frequency. Because if you go to Mars, Venus now, there's no one there at this frequency, but on a higher frequency, it's fully populated, and the plants there, you can have conversations with them, more intelligent than many people on this earth. Is that right, Deborah?
Yeah, and they move themselves about to suit where they need to go, and what we're told is there again, another one of our master's lectures is that's not as crazy as it seems, because just think of tumbleweed. That actually moves itself to where it needs to be into a place where it's going to flourish and grow. So our plants do move around, but when it was in Life on the Planets, the way that it's explained, it's almost like you see the plant go, right, oh, then I'm off over there. But it's just a very much more a highly evolved consciousness. Which makes sense, because as we raise our vibrations, we're all going to be a bit smarter, aren't we? And we do need to be raising our vibrations. Just as a planetary race, we're in a horribly ignorant mess. If everybody knew what you know, and hopefully a few more people will know what you know if they see this podcast, then it might just give them, a sense of responsibility. And that's just so important. It's just seemed that we're banging a very lonely drum at the moment, and we do need to get the message out there that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's growing though. I think the awareness is growing and the acceptance. I used to run an event in London many years ago, not that long ago, about 10 years ago, called Planet Consciousness. And when I think it was 2012, that was launched. And when I first launched it, people were kind of like, what are you talking about? Are you bonkers doing a big event in London about plant spirits? But by the time it had finished, like 5 years later, when, I ran it every year for 5 years, after about 5 years, the scene and the understanding of nature and that we are nature, we're not separate from it, and that, animism is a thing, and, plants have consciousness, and scientific kind of, lots of scientific research into it as well on the scientific side. That was huge just 5 years later. And so I'm just seeing there's just much more of an acceptance of this in the general populace. Even if people aren't interested or motivated to go and look into it or explore it, they just accept it. So I think there's definitely a kind of like a consciousness expansion around this, for sure.
What do you think of ayahuasca? Has it been a help or a hindrance? Because people, when you say I work with plant medicine, people think, I have to go to the Amazon to get that. But you're in Somerset working with local plants.
I think ayahuasca has done us a great service. I think it chose to move into the West and out of the Amazon and come into Western consciousness. The plants move, as you just said.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, good link there. Yeah. It's very good.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the consciousness of ayahuasca came into the Western mind because we needed it. We needed to break through out of our really rigid conditioning, that Victorian conditioning, and that kind of like the conditioning of the kind of the organized churches, the Catholic Church, that kind of like really kind of restricted our thought processes and what we believed we were. And then ayahuasca has been with us for the last 20, 30 years, really, and really opened people up to nature in general. So absolutely, I think it's done us a great service. I don't know whether, I think there's obviously a kind of like a shadow side of it as well. When anything becomes mainstream, and you know, of course, human consciousness, the shadow side of human consciousness gets kind of entangled within that, and so there's a lot of problems in that space. I appreciate that, but in terms of just looking at the positive qualities of ayahuasca, it's a very complex plant, and so I think people have misunderstood it. But at the same time, it's really helped a lot of people as well. So, you know, there's two sides to it.
And isn't it well, I find it interesting that we now have a king that has been talking to his plants, playing music to it, and been banging the drum of the essence of nature and plants. It's now the head of has always been the head of the Christian church and he's the bridge. You know, he's the voice and the bridge of the understanding. And I think that's very timely. I mean, obviously, our Queen lasted as long as she could, but we've now got this new energy and this new openness or somebody that's more able to express it, because we've been speaking about it for decades, the importance of working with the garden, as he would put it, or with the spirit of the garden.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a very kind of, you know, eco-centric outlook. I don't know how much he'll be permitted to speak in that way now that he's on the throne, because, you know, from what the media kind of put out, it seemed like they were a little bit embarrassed about that, the fact that he spoke to his plants, and so he was kind of a little bit mocked for it. So I'm not sure in how much he'll be able to kind of talk about that anymore. But yeah, absolutely. You know, we are becoming more aware of the natural world, and even up to the level of the monarchy. And he's done a lot of good in the world in terms of pushing the organic movement and kind of helping people to understand that we can live in much more kind of harmony with nature. So yeah.
I wanted to go back to what you said about the clairvoyance aspect too. Have you seen these divas? Or do you have, when you've been ingesting the substances and fasting for 3 days, or are you clairvoyant all of the time?
I only have to call on my spirit allies and I can see them on the inner planes, yes. Because what I do is, like, my day job is that I have a plant spirit team, mainly plant spirits, other allies as well. And I have clients, I clear people's energy fields. So I do it remotely. So I have clients all around the world, and they come to me if they've got things attached into their energy fields, or they've got damage to their energy fields, or they kind of can't, they're having troublesome thoughts, or kind of not able to heal properly. And by bringing balance and healing to the energy field, just kind of like removing toxicities, removing any attachments, and bringing integrity back to the auric field, then that helps with people to have clearer minds, more energy. It helps with the spiritual development, etc. So in order to do that, I spend a lot of time with each of my planet spirits to find out exactly what they can do within that realm as well. And so absolutely, you know, the mind, the imaginal realm, is very important in that. How I actually see them will be very different to how you would see them, because they're coming through our own individual filters. However, there will be commonalities between how we all perceive certain beings, because there are they work within a bandwidth of frequencies, and so there will be commonalities. However, we're all different. We have different backgrounds, etc. So we'll interpret those frequencies in our own unique way.
That's an interesting way to describe it.
Yeah, and so it's and so we have to if I'm to be effective in my healing practice, then I have to be able to see, because what they're doing, and see what they look like, and so otherwise it doesn't, the kind of the effect of what I'm doing isn't as strong. We have to, us as the observer and us as the conduit, the channel, if you like, for those kind of like energies and those healing forces, then that has to, I can't just kind of, it's not just hit and hope.
Yeah, imaginary, yeah.
I have to direct it and make sure that what's happening. I'm like the conductor of the show, basically. My plant spirit allies do all the work, but I kind of like direct them as to what needs to be done. So I need to be able to see that.
And do you see, are they some full bigger than you, some small? So how do they appear to you?
They're all different. So, in the British Isles, we've got a very strong tradition of witches. So some of the plants that have that the witches work with will carry the energy of the witches quite strongly within their morphogenic field, and so that will kind of come through, and so they'll appear quite witchy to me. Others appear as quite some appear like the oak, for example, just appears as this beautiful big kind of column of light.
And this is the diva of the plant.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Others will appear. Some appear as kind of geometric shapes of light. Some appear actually. Some don't. Some work that. There are some plants, spirits that operate from a very fine frequency. And so in order to kind of come into this realm, they have to almost kind of like produce like what they call a Talesmic image, which is like this kind of interface. And so that could be anything. So I've got one particular plant spirit who projects this image of a white peacock. And that's so that I can, that's the kind of like the frequencies that it's working with. And so then it can come into these lower realms. The more dense suit,
project itself forward, yeah, like
through that
form.
interface, like a portal, if you like. So then, if I want to call on that planet spirit, I'll just kind of bring to mind, and through my intention, that image of the white peacock, and that's the. So I don't need
the doorbell.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's my telephone line.
Okay.
How I teach people to kind of connect themselves in that way, that's quite an advanced way of working with them. How I teach people to connect and create that direct telephone line themselves is to, when we're working with the plant, every time you meditate with it, every time you take the essence, every time you kind of connect in some way to the plant spirit, is how is it making you feel in your body or in your energy field? There'll be a particular frequency or vibration that it will create. So it might be a wavy feeling in your energy field. It might be a feeling of being really grounded and rooted. It might be a really kind of a beautiful feeling in one of your chakras. That there will be some consistent kind of frequency, what I call a handle, that you will determine over a period of time. The more time you spend with that plant, the more times you ingest it, there'll be this particular kind of like connection that you will establish, and that's your unique connection to it. So every time you want to call on your plant ally or speak to the oak or the hawthorn or whoever it is, then you bring to mind and you recreate that frequency in your energy field, and it's through that you will communicate with it.
Beautiful, yeah. Yeah, they say the divas exist between the realms because each chakra is a realm of consciousness. When we die, we go to another realm of consciousness, and the divas exist between the realms. So like a comb is always the analogy. They fit together perfectly. Dr. King, actually, he was a master of yoga. In the 1950s, there was a huge storm about to hit London, and he saw that many people would die, particularly in basements and things. And so he did a ceremony, called forth the diva of the storm, and called a huge storm diva into his presence. Said it was quite awe-inspiring, and gave it the energy it needed. And then the storm broke over the Thames instead of over London.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. When we work with property, I help people to kind of like bring healing and balance to their houses as well. And when I do that, I connect into the Devic spirit of that property and find out what's going on. And
they tell you what's happened.
Absolutely. They tell me what's going on. And so by bringing balance, then you can change the whole frequency of your home and you're much more healthier. People get less sick. People are just more calm and balanced. So absolutely, that by working with the spirited place as well as the spirited, for me, everything has a consciousness. You can communicate with anything. I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wouldn't say you're very advanced. I'd say we're all very backward. We should all be able to do what you're doing. It should be.
It's natural. It really is.
Yeah.
And actually, my psychic abilities were just a natural byproduct of working with plants. I didn't set out to become psychic. I was actually just interested in my own healing path. And I knew I had a lot of issues from childhood I needed to work through. And the plants, as coupled with a meditation practice, and an understanding of consciousness and how the mind works, that really helped me. And it was really helping me a lot. But then a byproduct of that, a side effect, was that, I'm actually starting to become quite psychic. I can see like really quite clearly. And so yeah, it just evolves. Because the more you cleanse your energy field, the more you deal with your shadow, you bring illumination to your shadow, the more you kind of overcome the kind of the issues from your childhood and perhaps your other lives, then the more we just become our true selves, the more we just become natural, and all of those senses just come online. So as we've been really fixed to the external world, we've got our 5 senses that are fixed in the external world, but we've got the exact same 5 senses internally as well. So
that's exactly what we're told.
Yeah. So they just come online. Yeah. So you have that same understanding. It seems we have very similar understandings in our, in our traditions.
Well, there is only one truth. They've just got to find the commonalities between them. And by exploring, as we're exploring here, it just becomes very clear that, you say tomato, I say tomato. Not I do, I say tomato too. But you get my drift. It's the same stuff, because there is only one truth. And if you're speaking the truth, you just got to be able to weave it together. And then I believe in giving that message out, just having this conversation and understanding, like really listening and thinking, well, that fits in there. And how does that fit in? It suddenly just makes a whole lot of sense, expands the language barrier, if you want, because a lot of the words are the things that actually block, or for me, because we understand words in different ways. As you've just said, you will see the divas in different ways because it's the way that your neurons work. So you're going to get a vibration and get your own slant on that vibration. That's what we all are, different slants of the same truth. Absolutely. It's been really interesting for me to sit in a room with you, and thank you. And I booked for one of your and you're in London. I actually booked to go on your course and couldn't come at the last moment. So I almost met you in 2015, almost. So it's taken that long to get to now. So yeah,
wow.
Nice.
Well, yeah, but it is, and the English language, I find, we're really limited with the words. We don't have, the English language is very directed to the physical world. Whereas you look at like the Celtic, the kind of the Gaelic languages, the more spiritual languages, certain forms of Tibetan, obviously Sanskrit, etc. It's much different. They're sacred languages with words that are specifically to describe the unseen realms and more transcendental experiences.
Would you give us an example then of a Celtic word or some Fey word? Or
I don't speak Celtic languages, unfortunately.
I was going to say,
yeah,
because we often say the English language is very frustrating.
Yeah, but I would love to be able to, but it would take a long time to learn, and I don't really have the time. But when I was studying for my master's in Tibetan Buddhism, I learned about the sacred language in Tibet. And, you know, where we would have, Tibetans have one word, we'd need a whole paragraph in English just to explain that one word. And so it really kind of made me realize, oh, wow, I'm quite limited. And then the more I was kind of talking and writing about my experiences, I realized how limited I was. But through living in this land, you know, the British Isles, you know, I just heard and learned that, yeah, the Gaelic languages, they come out of the land, they come out of nature. So they're going to be much more kind of in tune with our soul, you know, so yeah.
Okay, so if people want to go further with you, they want to do a course with you, perhaps, so you're not running the one in London anymore, but how's the best way people can follow you and connect with you?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I have two websites. One is plantconsciousness.com and the other is naturalesoterics.org. The naturalesoterics.org, they're both connected, but the naturalesoterics.org is the portal for my courses. I've got a beautiful course coming up called The Inner Essence of the Created Mind. And that's all about working with this astral light, working on the inner planes to build structures and forms that help us to connect to nature. But then I run in-person plant diets that during the summer months as well.
Okay, so there's a newsletter people can sign up for, or Instagram, or I guess you're on all of these.
Yeah.
We'll put all links in the show notes, so if anyone wants to go there, they can go. And if people want to learn more about the Aetherius Society, aetherius.org, or also if you wanted to practice the 12 blessings, that might be something you might be interested in, because you could feel the energy flowing, and you're one of the people being thanked in there, so you should definitely practice it.
I'm very interested now. Thank you.
Yeah. 12blessings.org, the number being numerical, is a good place to start.
Fantastic.
Anything I missed, Deborah?
Probably, but I can't think what it is.
All right, lovely. Well, thanks so much for coming, Emma. It's been a real pleasure.
Oh, my
Thank
pleasure. Thank you so much for asking me. It's a real pleasure.
All right, take care. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye now.